a man had two sons and he wanted to give them a gift, but also kind of challenge them something. So he said to them, I'm going to give each of you the same amount of money, but what I'm going to do is I want you to build a house, and I want you to build the house for me. I want to see what you're going to build with it. So the one brother, the one son, went and he took the funds that the father gave him. He bought a nice lot with a beautiful view. He took advantage of the fact it was a very generous gift, and he went ahead and he built a house for his dad that took advantage of the view, quality materials, nice and big, kind of places for the children and grandchildren, whatever, to visit him if they wanted. It was just more than adequate. The other son kind of took it as an opportunity to save some money or to get some money from the father. You see, he was a little fearful. He was afraid maybe the father would cut him out of the will. Maybe he wouldn't get his due inheritance. And so as a result, he took the money, same amount, and he squirreled some of it away for himself, so there wasn't as much for the house. So he bought a very substandard lot. He used not quality materials, built a small house just for the dad, not for really anybody else to go and visit. And really it ended up kind of being very inferior. So the father said when both houses were done, he came and said, well, let me see both of these houses. I'll kind of decide which one I want to live in. But then there was a big surprise. And he said to them, you know what, boys? Instead of me taking possession of the houses, I've decided to give them to you. And so what you built is yours to keep now. So the one son was thrilled. He had a beautiful home. And the other one, well, he continued to feel cheated through life. And he didn't do the best that he could with what he was given. Why? He was very self-serving. He saw it as an opportunity and not something that was a blessing. He really wasn't very responsible. Our readings these weeks all talk about responsibility. As we get to the end of the liturgical year, sometimes people think that they are all about the end times. But last week the reading was about the 10 virgins, 5 who were prepared, 5 who were not. The whole point of it being that they weren't responsible or accountable for what they had been given or for what was their charge, which was to be ready for the bridegroom, and half of them failed. Today we have the parable of the talents, and look at what happens. They're all given something special, maybe in not equal portions, but they are given something special, more than what they had before. 2 of them did something very good with it, and 1 does nothing with it. Again, was he accountable for what he had been given? Did he do the best that he could as a good steward? Next weekend is Christ the King Sunday. We're going to hear again about a separation between sheep and goats, and about the corporal works of mercy. Just to give you a little preview of it, is about how do we care for those in need? Do we visit the sick, the imprisoned? And if we do, well, great, we'll be on the side with the sheep. But there's going to be a separation. So what are we called to do? To be responsible and accountable with what we have been given. And these are not days or times or places or whatnot to be afraid of. We shouldn't be afraid of meeting God one day, the ultimate master, if we've been doing what we should be doing all along. So today's particular parable, we're getting to the end of Matthew's gospel, reading it most of these weekends. It's been a beautiful journey this year with Matthew's gospel because there's a lot of parables. Matthew used the parables to take different regular events that happen on a daily basis for people and bring them to a spiritual place. And so today he's talking about the master and the servants. So to one he gives 5, to one he gives 2, to one he gives 1. Well, 2 of them doubled what they were given. Isn't that wonderful? And that's what we're called to do and to be with the gift of stewardship, or really the gift of discipleship. We're called to take and to receive in a gracious manner. That's something that many people have a problem doing. When someone compliments, what do? Oh no, there's a false humility. Oh no, that's not my talent. I know someone will say, Father, you gave a beautiful homily. And I always say, thank you very much. We have to receive graciously. It's the Holy Spirit that speaks through, but we receive graciously. So if someone compliments us on a talent that we have, you played music beautifully. Sometimes there's that sense of, oh no, I don't have a good voice. Well, you're just looking for more compliments now. Oh no, you're really, really good. We have to be careful of that. I think Nelson Mandela said it very well, and I quote, false humility hurts as much as false pride. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, but our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. And we don't often reflect upon that we can receive these talents from God, be grateful for them for the betterment and the service of the world, because we are called to share them with Christ, to allow Christ to come through those talents. So we receive graciously as a steward, we tend responsibly. So if we're given something that is special, whether it be materially, whether it be a talent that is something, let's say, physical, or let's say we're great at athletics or intellectual, well, do we continue to improve upon that? Or do we just let it go by the wayside? We're called to tend responsibly. And as a good steward, as a good disciple, we're called to multiply, to give back to God with increase. So this is where the one gentleman, he goes wrong, because he didn't even put it in the bank. And there were certain laws with the Israelites that prohibited getting interest from other people's loans. But the master was shrewd. He was saying, why didn't you do something with it? You buried it. Well, that servant took to heart another practice of the time, which was if someone gave you something to look after, if you buried it, you were renouncing possession of it. Whereas if you took it and did something with it, you were also assuming risk with it. So this gentleman was saying, I don't really want your gift. I really don't want it. I'm going to renounce that possession. I'm going to be safe about it. But was he safe, or was he fearful? Well, he was fearful of the master, but really he was fearful of what he could have become. He was fearful of his own abilities. Why didn't he take courage to go outside of himself? He represents to us, actually, Jesus was speaking to this group, the scribes and the Pharisees, because he played it safe. He preserved what he had, but he didn't increase it. And so as a result, Jesus is talking to the scribes and Pharisees who they wanted to preserve their traditions, but they didn't want to grow. They didn't want to be transformed. They were closed to conversion. So this talent represents maybe the human heart, not being open to growth, not being open to what God has in store for us. So we can hear this particular parable and then say, well, how does it apply to us? Well, this is Thanksgiving week. It's going to be a beautiful week for people to get together. For some, it may be a painful week because maybe your family is far away, or maybe you're not able to be with them. Well, I think that it's a time for us, no matter what, to look internally, to be able to say, Lord, what can I be thankful for? What are the talents that you've given to me? And I don't mean just material talents, because very often on Thanksgiving, we give thanks for the home that we have and food, and that's all beautiful, that's all wonderful. But go a little deeper. What is a special gift God has given to you? How has God made you different than anybody else? Is there something in particular that you want to say, God, thank you for giving me the gift of patience. Thank you, Lord, for giving me the gift of courage. Thank you, Lord, for giving me the ability to be a father or a mother. Our first reading speaks in a very beautiful way about a good wife. This was just proclaimed yesterday. I had a wedding down at St. James Cathedral, and this was what they chose for the reading. And it kind of defines what is the good wife. Well, caring for the home, being loving, but also going outside of the home, caring for the poor. Being a mother, being a wife, embracing our vocation from God, that is probably one of the biggest gifts that we can be given. If you are a grandparent, give thanks to God for that gift, or a great-grandparent. And how do you tend that gift? These are precious times. These are precious moments to be able to form our young people. Never underestimate that. So if you have children and maybe you're a dad who has to travel for work, well, maybe to look back, step back and say, now's the time for me as I go forward. Maybe I've not been that good in the past, but going forward, when I'm home, I need to spend quality time with the children. What does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean that you say to the kids, okay, kids, you're going to sit at the kitchen table and we're going to spend quality time together. No, that's kind of false. They know when they're loved. Children know when parents have embraced and are secure in the vocation they have been given. So how do we take that gift as a vocation, as a priest, and do the best that we can with it? And everybody is given something different. Our founding fathers wrote in the Constitution, all are created equal. Well, that means we're given equal rights. We all have to share equal responsibility. But when it comes to talents, it may not all be equal. Look around. Some may be better at one thing and someone else better at something else. But what are you good at? How has God blessed you? You know, I grew up in a household where certainly we were not height challenged. I'm the shortest in my family at 6'4". My brothers are 6'8". What is the question that we always got? Oh, I bet you all play basketball. Did you play basketball, in college or this and that? I'm just going to tell you, I don't think I've ever said it before. I'm terrible at basketball. I'm awful at it. Just because I'm tall doesn't mean. And so I realized early on that was not my gift. My brother's 6'8" and he's kind of husky. And he had a hard time just getting back and forth from one side of the court to the other. So what would they do with us? They would just stick us under the basket and get the rebounds and throw them back. I tell you, when we were at the seminary and we played some 3-on-3 tournaments, my brother and I were pretty wicked on the court. We did discover our talent then, but we were just good at getting the ball and throwing it back. That was it. That's all we were capable of, and I kind of knew that. And we embraced that. And I have to tell you, I'm freed by the fact that I can say, I'm not that good at basketball. Did you play basketball? Well, not really. I didn't have that competitive spirit. That was not my talent. I'm happy to go and do more solo kind of things, and that's more of my talent. I kind of look at priests. Sometimes people think all priests should be the same. We're all different. We all have a different talent. For instance, somebody might be a good preacher. They might be a good administrator, but they may be lacking in something else. They may not be then the best at going to visit the sick. Look at our own household here. We have Father Bowman. He's very good at going on vacation every year. I had to get that in. But he's wonderful with the sick. Father Bowman has an incredible talent going, and he just loves going to the nursing home, and just a beautiful spirit. Father Josh has a creativity. I worked with him, and he's away this weekend. He's off fishing somewhere in a swamp somewhere in Florida, I don't know. But I worked with him at campus ministry before he even went to the seminary. And I worked with him for about 4 years. And he was one of the most creative employees I've ever had. He would come up with titles for nights that we would do for the college students, and he would come up with them, and it would be like, wow, where did that come from? That was great. And I just didn't necessarily expect it, but that was something that he was very talented with. Father Jorge, who lives with us now, one of his talents, he's a great runner. Well, he loves going out, and that's how he just enjoys kind of releasing his own abilities to kind of his own frustrations or whatever. But he loves going out and running. Father Bill's like Mr. Fix-It. If you need something fixed, Father Bill Goring, call him. 407-869-9472. It's the parish office number. He's great at fixing things, anything. So we're all different, and it means that we have interests and we're varied. And that's okay because we're not all created the same, not all created equal. But what is it now that we do with it? So if you've been given a talent, let's say, in something that maybe you don't even know yet, well, it's time to explore it. We have to have the courage to go further. We have to go outside of ourselves. That's why the second reading says to us today, speaks to us about how we should stay awake, be prepared. Because guess what? If we're not awake, we're sleeping. And if we're not alive, we're dead. And God put us here to be alive. And that means alive means we continue to receive, to embrace, to wonder, what's today going to bring? Who knows what talent is still yet to be found? Who knows what talent is still yet to be given to us that we're yet to discover? We may not know. My friends, we're not completed vessels. We're not completed vessels, because if we are, we're up on a shelf and we're collecting dust and we're cracked. No, we're drying out. No, that's not what we are. We're alive. And because we are alive, we continue to develop and we continue to be the people that God has created us to be. And how is it that we can be awake and alive to receive what those talents are? So this is a very beautiful gospel for us this particular week. Think about what your talent is. Maybe look around that Thanksgiving table, which at times can be a difficult place for many people. Hold your tongue at times on Thursday if you need to. Best advice that you might receive. But I will tell you that when we have that opportunity, look around that table and think, wow, I can criticize probably every person there. We can always be critical, and that takes no energy and no creativity. But think about that. Look around that table and say, what is each person's talent? What is each person's talent? Maybe that you see in them. What a beautiful thought of going around and not just thanking God, even just for our own selves, but what can we thank God for the other people who are closest to us, those whom we love? Because when we see these gifts and these talents as something positive, that we receive graciously, we tend responsibly, we increase and give back to God multiplied, well, then we're going to be like those servants who he said, come, be with me, share my joy. Wow, isn't that what we all want to do? Share the joy of the Lord. That's beyond our own human comprehension. Come share your master's joy. And he's going to look into our eyes. One of my favorite verses from all of the scriptures. He's going to look into our eyes, God, one day. And he's going to tap us on the shoulder. And we can only hope that we'll hear these words from Matthew 25, where he says 7 words that all of us should one day long to hear. Very simply, well done, my good and faithful servant. What has God given to you? What is he still asking you to explore and discover? How do you tend it responsibly and return it back to him with increase so that we too can share in the master's joy?